Everyone, welcome to our weekly GrowStraya conversation. This call is for the grower and producer, the supply chain operator, and the conscious consumer. We're all here because we share a common desire, and that is to be part of a food system that supports the grower and nourishes the consumer. We all know the current food system isn't working. And if I hazarded a guess, if you're anything like me, you have had the thought, there has to be another way. Farmers just want to do what farmers do best, and that is to nourish the land, the plants, the animals, and the people. But they get caught up in the three things that they can't control, and that is the government, the market, and the weather. And then the consumer is faced with increasing government regulation, overbearing corporate control, and distance between the grower and themselves. But I'm here to tell you that it is not all doom and gloom. On the call tonight, we have our friend and grow expert, Neil. He is coming all the way from Canada, and he has a plethora of experience and knowledge in the ag industry. Every single time I hear him speak, I learn something new. And he's here to teach us about this new paradigm, which is a community-led food system using innovative technology to create a system that is transparent, resilient, and sustainable, changing the ag future. So I just want to hand over now to Neil because he has lots of information for us this evening. Neil, welcome.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's great to be on this call again, another Wednesday. Since last Wednesday, I've had some amazing conversations with growers right around Australia, from WA to Victoria. Last night, I was on the phone with a producer in Tassie. I've had a couple of calls with folks up in Queensland and New South Wales. So really exciting to see that there's some interest and that, you know, what we're talking about today is actually starting to at least pass people's interest as they're noodling around with this new emerging technology that we're going to be talking about. And that's the Grow platform. The Grow platform is what we consider a Web3 platform. And it comes with a whole set of new vocabulary and pieces of information. We're really just trying to distill it down to something that's simple and translatable, and that you can actually see functioning within your operations, or if you're anywhere in the supply chain within your business entity, and if you're a consumer on the phone, how you can be a contributing member in part of this new, we call it an ecosystem, but really it's a community that is here to support each other, so that we can flip the script in the agri-food industry and really set a new trail ablaze. No pun intended there. I know there's some very serious fires happening down in Victoria, so maybe I'll retract or redact that last comment. We'll set a new path out. So today, we want to talk about making farmers the hero of the story, and that's a really easy statement to say, and it's a very hard thing to accomplish. And really what we need to do is continue to arm farmers, producers with, you know, great tools and great opportunities and a great community, so that they have more in their back pocket. They can toe the line and they can start having different conversations, whether that's with their financiers, whether that's with the market space, whether that's with the supply chain, or whether that's with consumers. We need to provide those solutions. And that's really what Grow shows up and does, is it provides a solution as much as highlighting some of the consistent constraints that we find ourselves in. So as Annika amazingly and well articulatedly put together, you know, we're saddled as producers, and I'm a producer still, with ongoing constraints that are a little bit out of our control. Some of it is within our control, but the three that stand out, the market conditions. I mean, Australia is continuously going through flux. In my conversations this last week, you know, we've heard about the sheep trade that's potentially changing. You know, a lot of the heat waves that are going on are reducing the ability to actually move sheep into the Middle East, and yet the lambing rate's going up. So we're going to have an overabundance of sheep on the market. There's a reduction in beef exports, and yet China is, you know, circling around on potentially buying more out of Australia. So it's really interesting times in the market space, and you know, what can we do to help control or contribute to some of these conversations that are happening? Whether none of us get away from that. I mean, you're dealing with severe heat in Australia and fires and some unprecedented times. I call it the crazy weather systems in Canada. I'm faced with similar in a very different perspective. Today it's minus 40 something Celsius. And last week, between last week and today, we've had some very, very cold temperatures, and we've had to be out in the fields trying to get cattle in and build temporary shelters out there because the cattle just don't want to come into the barns. And, you know, it creates a lot of volatility. And then the government regulations, they're ongoing. You know, we tend to point fingers, and we, you know, look at some of these individuals that potentially haven't spent time in the field, haven't got their hands in the dirt, that are making decisions on our behalf. And we need to be able to provide not only some of our thoughts and perspectives, but a opportunity to present different perspectives in a different way. And a lot of that rides around a commodity that we all farm as producers and that we're all in part of, which is data. This sort of unspoken commodity that we're cultivating here. And the Grow blockchain really allows us to use that data in different ways. And it's actually something that is quite exciting if we frame it up and we start looking at the opportunities ahead of us. So those are the realities. Good long pause there. And as we continue to look in, they contribute to some of the human factors. So nothing is isolated in agriculture. It's an ecosystem because everything works together and it needs to work together. And so from the things that are outside of our control and a little bit within our control and the conversations happening around us with regards to how we're growing or raising our food, there's a human toll component that takes effect. And we call that the human well-being factor. But that comes into play through financial constraints, environmental shocks to the system, you know, isolation as we're getting out in the field. And I know when things get hard, when things get frustrating, the first thing I do is as I head out into the field, I try to find something that needs fixing, which isn't hard to do. There's always something that needs tending to. But it does create a lot of isolation. And if we're not taking account and are being self-aware of our own human health, you know, that can lead to some devastating scenarios. And so on the left hand of the screen there is a stat there that, you know, I hope that this Grow community can help curtail a little bit, that we can start to change the course of this direction just because we have a community. And so if you're, yep.
Oh, sorry, your slide isn't showing. The slides aren't showing.
Hey.
I think they're showing
It is early. He hasn't had his coffee yet, I don't think.
Yeah, my coffee's just kicking in. I didn't share a screen there, so I apologize. Thanks for that.
Oh, good.
So in case you missed it, here was my intro slide. Here was the market conditions, and then here we are, the human cost factor. Thanks for that, Jen, and I appreciate that. I know you didn't want to look at my face talking the whole time. You wanted some visuals behind me.
Not that at all.
So access and means. The left hand of the screen, I was talking about that stat there. One farmer lost every 10 days to suicide because of those contributing human well-being factors that, you know, sometimes can overtake our thoughts and, you know, and our desires, and we feel that we don't have any other ways to function other than to make some unfortunate decisions. And as I was mentioning, I really hope this Grow community can help turn the corner on this stat. With the solution, with the technology, but also just the amazing people within our community right now that are here to help support, here to be a lifeline, to listen, to try to find different outcomes than that one stat. So let's take a bigger step back and look at the big problems here. We know that there's about 10 companies that control the entire global food market space. Doesn't matter where we are in our growing regions or bioregions globally. That also moves into consumer brands. So a lot of product that comes off a farm that isn't part of the food network is going into building and manufacturing and other consumer products that we purchase and that we utilize. And again, there's a centralized control. Now, I typically pick up centralization from after the World Wars. We know we needed centralization to get back on track. And then we hit this tipping point. And that tipping point happened, you can debate whether it was late 70s, early 80s, but right around that time frame, we went too far with centralization, and we've just been on a downhill slope ever since, where we're actually focusing on the dollars and cents. We're not focusing on the human component. We're creating a lot of constraint points and a lot of issues and concerns, and those in those central entities tend to be doing very well. And as we cascade down, those at the bottom are less benefiting from some of that centralization. And so part of what we do at Grow is talk about the converse side of that, which is decentralization. The funny thing is a lot of these central entities that you see on the screen here, these large corporations that we love to hate, sometimes referred to as big ag or big food, they're set up for decentralization. We just haven't provided them the solutions. And so Grow comes along and says, hey, we can actually point a finger and we can provide a solution, and we can start to push the decentralization, which means we need more independence, more producers coming back into growing and raising our food, different conversations happening, and less central decision-making and central control. So for some of you that are new on the call here, and for those of you that have been joining us regularly on Wednesdays, if you've forgotten, I am Neil, and pleasure to meet you if you're newer to the call. I'm a farmer. I grew up farming. I'm still a farmer today. I'm very fortunate and very blessed to have been able to work globally within my ag career, spending actually quite a lot of time in Australia, from WA all the way over to the Gold Coast. I spent a lot of time in Bendigo and Esperance in particular. What I really love about agriculture is our community as a whole, and then our micro community that we're building and grow. I just get to do what I've been doing my whole life, which is bringing value back into the perspectives and into the purview of producers. My career had spanned helping producers diversify their balance sheet. I was a bit of a consultant in bringing ag tech in, and today I get to do that at pace with this new emerging technology called Web3. And so my driving force, my wife, she actually grew up in South Africa. She grew up in a sugarcane farming family. So she's knowledgeable and aware of some of the constraints that are happening in agriculture. South Africa is a whole different ball game when it comes to agriculture, but they're a very prominent country. But she continues to encourage me to get on these calls early in the morning in Canada, continue to share some of the things that I've gone through, and bring what I hope is some opportunity to engage in conversations and really demonstrate that what we're building at Grow is going to have impact, and it's going to move the needle. And so I'm very thankful for her. We do live between Toronto and Saskatoon, if you're wondering what that image is, in Canada. So we're fully placed as Canadians these days. This is my herd. This little black house in the center is currently where I'm sitting today, using this wonderful satellite technology to be on this call today. I've got a herd of Highland cattle. We've got a couple of Angus that are out there right now as we're tendering. We live right on the river. It's a very idyllic location. We have a lot of snow, and I'm very thankful for that, as I continue to remind myself, even though it is blistering cold, but it's going to reduce the pest diseases this spring. So, everything with a silver lining is what I try to focus on. I love to fix things, and showing you this, not to put a feather in my cap, not to be boastful, but really just to demonstrate that, I've worked, I've got my hands dirty. I don't just sit behind a laptop and talk. I really do love to create solutions that bring different opportunities back into the producers' operations, and both personally and for the benefit of the agri-food market space. And I believe everything is a coherent system, and so a system of systems. I'm a bit of an engineering brain. How can we create that domino effect? And in that, how can we leave our ecological ecosystem in a better spot than we found it as we're growing and raising more nutrient effective food. And that starts with infrastructure, and that starts with water and all the equipment that we have on there. So just some demonstration of the things that I do. I've been fortunate to, these are some of the ventures that I've been part of, bringing to market space. I designed this really large grain auger that was quite unique, and I've been working on a product where we're taking the diesel out of combustion engines and solubilizing that and putting that back as carbon water onto the soils, and so a fully closed loop system. And I've been part of the carbon market space. It's the bottom picture there, and analyzing carbon. And we can get into these rabbit holes, but there is some really neat technology. All of it, though, and the reason I'd like to show this slide, all of it depended on data. And that data went into these systems and was part of these Web2 central communities. And what we're doing with Grow is we're allowing you who are cultivating this data to start having some sovereignty, start having some ownership of that data. And I'll show you how that's going to be beneficial in just a moment. I also get involved in the food side. I like to roast coffee. We've got a little roaster in Canada. I drink a lot of coffee. As you're starting to see, my speech is starting to speed up as my coffee's kicking in. But I think it's one of those amazing gifts that have been given to us, and I certainly very fond of my caffeine. And so I live in a very unique spot. For those of you who haven't been to Canada, we get the northern lights, we get cold temperatures. And part of that integration and system of systems, that picture on the left-hand side, I really do want us to be thinking about, how we integrate all that different infrastructure. And so we hear a lot about solar and farm fields. There's a lot of debates of, arable land and farming land being taken up for the purpose of generation of energy. But I don't think it has to be one or the other. I think it can actually be 1 + 1 = 3. And so I really toe that line, and I start talking to people about how we can incorporate some of these great opportunities to support our extractive components to the agriculture market space, which is energy generation in particular. And my views certainly, change day by day as we're going through this. And then lastly, I want to come back, and I just want to put a big pause here. These 5 hats represent people that I know or have known that are no longer with us. Again, because of that, inability to see a path forward because of the model that we have set up, and that is global. It's a global market condition. Specifically, I really do want to encourage anyone that knows producers, that knows farmers, anybody in the agri-food market space that is struggling today, get them on the line. Get them on the line with myself or anyone in our Grow community. Let's start having conversations, because I think there is an opportunity even just to hear you out and provide you one little nugget of hope, so that we don't add another hat to this log here. And I really do want that to sink in for everyone here. This is going to work because we're all in it together. It's not because I'm coming with a neo-centric solution. It's a community solution. So what if we could change, some of the thoughts that we have? What if we could prove how your food was produced so that there's less questions, people trust in the fact that you're regenerative or organic or not spraying or a reduction of tillage on your land? What if you could have better access to markets, or simply open up new market spaces that haven't been open to you before? What if you could stay independent without having to sell off your land to larger conglomerates or family offices or land trusts? Or what if you could simply just future-proof against future policy shifts, ensuring that your kids come back or may stay on the land and continue to farm? Well, I believe we can do that with Grow, and I believe that our technology and solution and community will continue to provide those opportunities exponentially. All of that leads us into what we call decentralizing the global agriculture and farming industry, or the agri-food industry, as I like to call it. And that really means that we're breaking things up, we're rattling the bush, we're flipping the script on conversations, and we're starting to not think about large conglomerates, but more independence. And so, smaller scale, more of it, more access for both consumers, supply chain, more opportunities for producers that are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into growing or raising our food. And that really leads me into saying, you as producers that are on the line today, you that have touched agriculture, you that are part of the grow community, you're pioneers. We've asked a lot of farmers, and we continue to ask a lot of farmers, no matter where you are. And capital F farmer, doesn't really matter what you farm. All of us have had to be pioneers, and so I take us, way back in the day. Farmers were innovative, and they really found opportunities in very hostile conditions to continue to feed themselves out of a need for their local friends and family, and then the larger community. And today we're still asking you to do that same thing, and I think that's really exciting because we can take what Grow brings and we can start to ask you to put your own perspective and your own spin on this emerging technology, and how the Grow community can really support the agri-food market space. So continue to be pioneers, continue to put that hat on. And as we go through the rest of the presentation, I want you to think about yourselves as those pioneers, and think about how you can contribute, whether you're part of the Grow community right now or thinking about joining or listening to this for the first time. You bring value in, the way you think and your own little bioregion that you're living within. And so bring those ideas forward, and let's continue being pioneers. Our mission, and it really was underpinned very well by what Annika had mentioned, it's about nourishing just not just people, but animals and the planet. So those ecosystems, the land that we're stewarding, is very important that we nourish that. And there's ways we can do that without dumping a bunch of synthetic chemistry on there. We can do that simply by re-engineering the setup and planting different trees and really understanding the pulse of our land and what it's telling us. The animals are very important, both those that were domesticated, that we're caring for, animal husbandry, and then the wild animals that are very important to the diversity. I just mentioned to a bunch of people as I was jumping on here, I'm dealing with some wild animals in Canada. I got some raccoons in my roof. And I'm trying to remind myself that as devastating as sometimes these wild animals can be, they actually give us indications of what's happening in our ecosystem. So what's happening around us, what's it telling us, and how can we work with them as opposed to simply eradicate them. And so this is about nourishing people, animals, and the planet, so that we have a better outcome and we set ourselves up for resiliency and really legacy. Again, that's making farmers, you, the center of the story. And so whether you want to consider yourselves a hero or simply you're the center and you have a bigger voice, I want you to think about that in two different perspectives. Your voice counts, and I think your voice is being stifled quite readily, and we're really trying to amplify that voice. So bringing you into conversations that you once being excluded from, getting you back talking about what's happening in your local bioregion, starts there and then expands out into the larger ecosystem of your country, and then larger global market space. So we need your voice and we need it loud, and we have that platform to allow you to do that. And then, of course, consumers, if you're on the call here, you like to eat. That should be everyone. You should all be sticking your hand up and nodding your heads. You need confidence. You need confidence in what you're eating. You need to be aware of how you're feeding your body. I'm starting to talk to a lot of the healthcare professionals, and they love what we're doing because we're really starting to indicate that, food is health. And, for us to nourish our brain, body, and soul, we need to feed ourselves effectively. And that's not just whole foods, but that is, understanding how foods do get processed and the reduction of processing, and not just dumping more chemistry into our food processing, but really understanding how we can take product from the field and turn it into something that is nourishing. But it starts with really, changing the way we think about how food is grown and raised. And so I challenge a lot of consumers, as you're eating today, do you understand where your food came from? And do you understand what went into it in terms of how it was raised or grown? And if you don't, I encourage you to use this platform. Start reaching out to producers here in Australia through the Grow platform, and ask questions like, how do you actually grow carrots that are nutritious, not just yield? How do you grow potatoes that, we're not dumping a bunch of fungicide on, that's, affecting our human health? How do we raise meat that isn't full of negative antibiotics and chemistries? the more you understand how your food is raised and grown, the more aware and conscientious you'll be about where you source your food. And we have some opportunities, and how it's affecting your health. So Web3 is just a new vocabulary, and it comes with a couple components. So blockchain, decentralized finance, NFTs or non-fungible tokens, data storage. These are all part of the Web3 umbrella that that the Grow platform is bringing forth as solutions. But I want to take you back to Web 1. That's where we started. That's when the internet sort of hit our desk. When Apple came out with the desktop computer, and it wasn't just for the government sector, and it really moved into this information at our fingertips. And it was amazing. We had confidence that this information was trustworthy and real. And then human ingenuity took over, and we said, how do we monetize this? How do we, make this opportunistic for ourselves? And our selfish ego maybe came into play. And us as humans, we always have that tingling in the back of our brain. What's in it for me? W2FM radio station. And that really took us into where we are today, which is the Web 2 era. And this Web 2 era is where everything is monetized. In fact, most of us that are producers are using some sort of technology to enter information. And in fact, we're probably paying a subscription to use that technology so we can put info in and then get it spat back at us in a complicated way. And what happens, unfortunately, is that information gets lost. So our data, information about our farm, what we're doing, all the information pieces, we don't know where it goes after we put it into these systems. And so Web3 is really the sovereignty era. And so it's a coding language that's allowed us to bring forth what we call a blockchain, which really just allows us to do three things amazingly well. Stores data in a tamper-proof state, or what we call an immutable state. Analyze data really effectively in a way that allows you to maintain or hold on to your own data. And so think about AI. We've all heard of OpenAI or ChatGPT. When we stick information in there, that information actually is no longer ours. It's actually now owned by OpenAI, and they're aggregating that information. They're doing stuff with that information. While in Web3, we want you to still use that same sort of AI technology to do the analysis, or maybe even just different applications. But we want you to maintain ownership of your own data so that you get the benefit, but maintain that ownership. And that's really what Web3 is about. It's sovereignty era. And it really is an emerging technology. It's been around for a hot moment, but it is something that we're just pulling new levers on so that we can make it more functional and more attainable for the agri-food market space. And it's really, really exciting. And that's really what we're going to build off of. So the blockchain, where you can store your data and have ownership, and then we can start to bring in all these different tools so that we can help you with your operations and give you different conversation pieces and really find new opportunities. Now, Grow is part of a larger ecosystem of sister blockchains that are using some of our core foundational tech. And it is exciting because it means that we're creating this new economy. And this new economy really is what I consider the starting step of a great book that I highly recommend all of you read. It's called The Network State, where we have ownership and all the different blockchains that are meaningful to us, and that we can start to interact with each other. But specifically, Grow is here to work on decentralization and bringing this tech into the agri-food market space, which is what we're talking about today. But this just gives you a perspective that we're thinking small, and we're thinking about our own Grow project, but we're also thinking midterm and long term, and how we create this new railroad and this new opportunity of the network state. So the future is now. We are really expanding fast and furious. The opportunity to be able to get on here every Wednesday and speak with every one of you that's in Australia really fuels me. I mean, I'm really excited when I get up in the morning, minus having to step outside momentarily in the cold weather. But being able to get into not just expanding in a different country, but really starting to create a global community that is going to change the way we set up our agri-food market space. That fuels me every day. But if we actually continue as business as normal, or we say, hey, great information, and we don't do anything about it, we don't try to process it and figure out how it's going to work in our life, we're going to be on this red line, which is what typically happens. We go to that wonderful education platform called YouTube. We go to some of these other education platforms. We listen to great information. We're inundated with education and knowledge base, but we typically do very little about it. And so we end up on this red line, and this red line is business as normal, and it's not going to help us really change or move the needle in the agri-food market space. So as you're listening today, whether you've been here multiple Wednesdays, whether you're new, I want you to think about, the one thing that you can do with this information and who you can share it with, or how you can actually process it and engage with some of it. The other thing that happens is new emerging technology typically happens on the scale of this blue line. We have this heyday. I call it the moth to a light bulb scenario. It's great, it's amazing, and then it tapers off because we don't have a runway or a roadmap at how to continue to utilize it and continue to iterate on this technology. So the technology has a heyday and then it falls off, and we typically start to follow the trend of that red line, which is a downhill slope. Well, Grow is on a completely different trajectory. We started slow and we started very systematically, and we're starting to actually build momentum. And that momentum is why I get up every Wednesday morning and talk to all of you. And that momentum is listening to you and building community and building opportunities and programs that are actually going to do something beneficial in the agri-food market space. And so today we're actually past the red and blue line. And we're moving upwards into this upper echelon of the green chart here. And I think that's great. It's not quite a Canadian hockey stick, but it's certainly on the right trajectory, and it takes all of you. So for those of you part of the Grow community, thank you for helping us get to where we are today. For those of you thinking about joining the Grow community or how this fits in, help us be part of this green line and really continue to push the buttons so that we don't end up as business as usual. I will mention, it's very easy for me to talk about this from an ethereal standpoint. It's scary. It takes a bit of gusto sometimes, and having awkward conversations is, difficult for some of us. And so I encourage you just to recognize that and be real with that with yourself, that this might just be some awkward conversations. But within the Grow community, we hold multiple sessions, and there's a platform called the Grow School. I highly encourage you to get part of. Ask us questions there. Ask any question, and you can ask 12 questions. You're going to get 14 answers, and then process that and figure out how what we're talking about can really bring value, small stepping stones into your operations, so that we can continue to move the needle. The Grow platform, the decentralization happens on a few levels: traceability, proof of changes ecologically. So I like the word regeneration. I think that's an end state that we're aiming towards. Once we start to remove the human component and the system regenerates on itself, that's amazing. I don't think anyone globally is farming regeneratively right now. It's a bit of a buzzword, but I think that's a goal to work towards. And embedded within that, to me, is organic sustainability, resiliency, and really what it is about leaving our ecological land in a better spot than we started with, and that we start focusing on nutrient component food that we're raising or growing. And so stop chasing yield, even though our system is very designed on yield. Start chasing nutrient density. And so these are some of the things that help us really create that momentum for decentralizing. Off-farm income opportunities, future-proofing against that future policy changes or even current policy changes that are happening as we're speaking today, different negotiation positions. This is what some of the opportunity of blockchain presents. I will mention as well that within the ability to store your data on the blockchain in an immutable or tamper-proof state, we also open up this new area that's called digital assets. It's probably the largest emerging digital or asset class that's coming in to the financial market space. And it's really, really exciting. In fact, it allows us to actually create a digital twin of some of the real world assets that you have on your farm. And we can create a whole new layer of financial perspective and diversification that is going to add just a little more breathing room under your collar. That's where we're going to start. And then really exponentially, it starts to expand or appreciate is maybe a better financial term. So I want you to pay attention to that, because that's what blockchain brings. It brings this emerging asset class into perspective, and you can actually be part of that. It's not just for the echelon, it's not just for the traders, it's not just for those in the financial system, it's for you, it's for us. And we can leverage our real world assets and create the digital versions of that for the benefit of your operations and then the larger agri-food market space. Diversifying your balance sheet. This is my statement, and this is sort of my tagline for 2026. This is where I like to start. I'm not proclaiming to make anyone millionaires and billionaires, and what I am saying is that we can actually diversify your balance sheet. If we can start there, we can reduce the hats on the log. We can start to create that breathing room. We can start to see things happening a little bit differently. You can start to use your financial plan more effectively. You can weather the storms, that happen, and both environmentally and human factor storms that happen. Whether we're creating resiliency or creating legacy, this is what diversification on your balance sheet looks like. And that's where I spend a lot of my time when I speak to farmers. We start right there. How does storing your data on the blockchain translate to diversification on your balance sheet? And there's some core software that we use that is an off-farm asset that continues to appreciate. And by the way, I don't know any piece of software right now that's out there that you purchase that appreciates in value, that also potentially has a write-down capability. Most software depreciates. It's kind of like a car. As soon as you start using it and pull it off a lot, it has a downward slope. So we bring a opportunity to have a positive effect on your balance sheet. And then we start to use that data on the blockchain, and we allow you to monetize it in different ways. Some of that is, as we mentioned, traceability information. Some of that is simply smart contracts or negotiation positions. Some of that is in environmental or ecological credit opportunities. Whether you believe in that or not, that opportunity is there for you, and we can leverage that. Some of that is simply being able to store your data on chain and work with a consultant and use the decentralized finance, which is going to come alongside your traditional finance, as part of a way to garner all that subject matter expertise so that you can continue to iterate on your farm operations. All of that leads into the diversification of your balance sheet. And so why the Grow blockchain? Well, I'm gonna stop here. Here's a new word, node. Our Grow blockchain runs on these things called nodes. It's really what, at the very simplistic way, it's what allows blockchains to be different from servers. Nodes create a verification, validation, and consensus. So for a blockchain to really operate, what needs to happen is these blocks need to be created, hence blockchain. And these blocks need to have a consensus so that we can have transactions happen, whether data or financially, on the blockchain. Well, those nodes are what we call infrastructure. And what we have discovered, and what one of our visionaries discovered, is that we could actually create a code that allows everyone to have ownership in our Grow blockchain and actually own a piece of the infrastructure through these nodes. It's just a piece of software. Now, we went to the extent of saying, can we make it really easy for you to acquire and to operate? Yes and yes. And can we make it very low power consumption? And that would be the third component. And so we're a bit of a black sheep in the Web3 community in the fact that we actually sell these nodes as a part of ownership seat in the software. That's the appreciating asset. Every 100 that get activated, the price goes up. So there's an appreciation factor there. And these nodes, they not only create consensus and validation, but they also allow us to bring in our decentralized finance, the Grow token. And so we can get into that in just a second, but it is a valuable piece. The last thing it does is it's your portal so that you can start storing data on the blockchain. And that's really, really powerful. And no one else is doing that. There are some of the sister chains that are using some similar core foundational tech are starting to do that. But the Grow blockchain is very different in the fact that that's how we offer this opportunity to get involved. Real world assets set us apart. We can digitize that. I talked about that. The token utility. So decentralized finance, it's not really scary. I believe in a world that decentralized finance, excuse me, is going to come alongside traditional finance. And again, it's not one or the other. But if we're going to create a new economy, we can't rely on the typical way of transactioning our trade. And so we created decentralized finance. Some people say it's crypto. It's probably the more correct term, but I like the term decentralized finance. It's more elegant. And it really has got a few different factors. For us, the Grow token is a utility token, meaning that it gains value because we use it. We don't just hold it. It's not a trading token. It's not a bond that we purchase and stick, in our balance sheet, and we just or in our bank. It allows us to have ownership of our own financial mechanism, and it gains value because we use it. And so we use it to purchase food directly from farmers. We use it to purchase consulting time. We use it to create trade with other businesses. We use it to transact those environmental credits. And every time we use it, there's a component of utility that gets built, and that creates value. And that's how we base. It's very much akin to the Aussie dollar and a portion of how the Aussie dollar gets valued on the market space. Some of that's related to the GDP. GDP is related to trade use. And so that is kind of how you can think about the Grow token. So it's a utility token. Don't get too scared about what you read in the news around the word crypto. And there's different coins out there, and you can go down the rabbit hole and the Australian dollar or the fiat system and get into the same sort of perspectives. What I want you to focus on is that it's just a mechanism of trade. It allows us to move the needle, but you start to have more ownership and you have less oversight on the functionality of this Grow token. So decentralized finance along traditional finance is really how we're going to start to move the needle. Of course, the Grow community, which is our team and the subject matter experts, and then something called our governance framework, our decentralized governance framework, allows us to really have everyone be part of it. So we have 3 different councils that run. We've got our managing council, which I'm part of, which started with the founders. We've got our Genesis Council made up of subject matter experts. And then we have our community council. You have a vote, you have a say, you have a voice in this Grow ecosystem. And we want you to contribute. We want you to be part of bringing suggestions, ideas, and contributing to the votes of how we continue to govern this blockchain and really support producers. So this isn't just getting part of something and then forgetting about it. This is actually being part of something and being active in the community, and to the extent that your operation allows you to. So maybe that's part of seasonality there. So our ecosystem, I mentioned some of the things we talked about, traceability. We have a program that we built. We built the Grow ecosystem based on use cases. So we built some of these applications so that we can demonstrate. We're not talking about future state. We're talking about today. We're doing these things today. We do traceability from field to fork or paddock to plate. We built a commerce platform, both so that consumers can buy directly from farm if you have products that are not contracted, or you have an off-farm capability to sell direct to consumer or direct to consumer model. Well, we have a platform for you, and you can use the Grow token to facilitate that. This also is for agribusinesses. So we have agribusinesses joining this, a B2B play. Now imagine your Grow node, your ownership seed in the Grow blockchain that's storing data for you is mining Grow tokens, and you're using those Grow tokens now on the Nourishmart to pay for some of your infrastructure, and whether that's nature-based solution products, whether that's virtual fencing or other components of mechanism that's going to allow you to reduce your Aussie dollars out of your pocket so that you can start farming and really produce amazing quality food or products, I should say. That's what the Nourish market space allows us to do. And so that's one of the applications. EcoMint was is our ecological credit. We're having some really great opportunities there to simplify, reduce the bureaucracy, create more momentum in selling these ecological credits. I've been actually this last week speaking with a lot of Aussies around that and some of the ACU components. So stay tuned for how we bring this more full force into Australia. Livestock was our first kick at the can at tokenizing real world assets. We're actually creating the digital twin of cows, and people are buying cows. We're in what we call the alpha testing. So we designed it, and then we beta tested it, and now we're in alpha testing. And there's going to be some weeks, maybe a couple months here before we actually start launching this in Australia full force. But it is a great example that it's working, and it works today. And now that we've built the skin, using it with cows, we can do this with any other crop or any other real world asset. So we've got the template. And then Kohima is the consultancy on chain that we have. So if you're spending dead money on a consultant, and by the way, I was a consultant, there's amazing consultants in Australia, and I really encourage them to continue doing the work that they're doing. But if you're thinking, hey, that's a lot of cash out of pocket for somebody's knowledge base that I'm hoping will turn into an ROI for my operation, think about coming in to grow, putting that same dollar to use in an appreciating asset, being part of this decentralized ecosystem that provides support mechanism, and still getting all that subject matter expert knowledge base. And so we know a lot of those consultants will want to work within the Grow ecosystem and allow you to use the functionality so that you get the knowledge, but you also get the upside. So think about the use of dead money and how it could be better spent within the Grow ecosystem. Right now, we've got about 17,000 irrigated acres and multiple different crops in coming weeks here. So I encourage you to come back to these Wednesday calls here. We're going to have some case studies and testimonials from some of these farmers and demonstrating how it's benefiting the bottom line, the real uses that are happening. We got tons of cattle, dairy, ranch, cattle, about 25,000 in growing. We also get into other ruminants. So we've got a couple of sheep farmers on there and goats. I've got a large horn, bighorn sheep farmer just up my way that is about to jump on and join us as well. And we even have some elk farmers that are thinking about joining us in Canada. So the livestock side of things is certainly there. And we also get outside of farming a little bit. We get into land stewardship. So conservation is a big term, agro-conservation. So if you're farming and potentially you're butting up against conservation areas, or you've got groups that are really focusing on conservation, they can benefit as well being part of our ecosystem. And we want to encourage them to join us, because some of the tools we have can actually continue to support the conservation. And again, that leads into the biodiversity. We need a portion of our land to be in conservation easement, as well as integration of how we continue to farm. So it's not one or the other, but it's sort of this blend, this juxtaposed of how they fit together. So this is a little bit that Farm Tracer. Certainly reach out and have conversations with me, and we can dive into the platform. I can show you how it works. But we had a really great use case, a little company called Amazon. You may have heard of them. They bought a sports arena in America, and their executive chef, who's pretty amazing, really had a hard time finding traced regenerative meat in particular for their arena. Their mandate is to only bring in regeneratively sourced food and beverage. Well, we connected them with one of our partner farms called Royal Family Farms, and they loved our traceability platform. And so they signed a 5-year, 7-figure contract with Royal Family Farms, and they're using that traceability platform extensively, and it is quite amazing. That was our first sort of flag in the sand saying, this can work, and this can work really well. And we've expanded beyond that. In the EcoMint side, now again, this picture, which is behind me, it's on the screen. When I start talking and educating about carbon, it's a cycle. So all I know is that there's gases up here, and we all know that. If we put them in the ground, that's beneficial. And we can do that. Whether you choose to monetize that or not, we can certainly show you how to capture the data and benchmark that data so you can see improvements. But you can monetize it, and you can do that through carbon sequestration, methane avoidance. And we've had some great wins, as you've noted here on the screen. Notably, we're actually moving this into the supply chain. So as much as we have a groundswell movement happening in terms of the Grow ecosystem, I'm also working on the top down. So really shaking the bush and pushing the CPGs and that big ag to say, hey, pay attention, and you want this information. Well, if you're going to access it, you need to start playing ball and start to get involved. And that has benefits to you, the producers. And so it's a movement that's happening both ways. The Nourish market space, I just talked about that. The tokenized RWA, again, as we start expanding this in coming Wednesday conversations and presentations, we can start to peel the onion on what this looks like in Australia. But just think about everything that you're currently selling into a market space. If it's an asset on your balance sheet, we can start looking at tokenizing that. And tokenizing really means just creating the digital twin. So much as the picture is created. And don't get scared. You're not losing the title of these animals in particular, or any of these. It just is literally creating the digital twin. And so you still maintain the ownership, or maybe the bank owns the cattle, and they don't lose the title. That gets into an area called securities. And right now, we don't have to play in the securities market. We can be a non-security platform, still providing these financial benefits. we're global right now. We're actually working on in about 10 countries, primarily North America and Australia is where we're really focusing our attention. But the Philippines is in our crosshair, and we've got some folks in India, and we've got some folks in Pan-African countries and in Europe. And so we continue to look for opportunities where it fits. The one thing that you'll note is that we don't push square pegs in round holes. We're not trying to sell widgets. We're not trying to sell opportunities that don't have materialized outcomes. We're actually providing solutions and opportunities. And so it's got to fit. And that usually means multiple conversations. So after this call here, and I'm just about done, we can answer questions. I encourage you to set up a one-on-one call with me and start, talking about your operation in particular, and whether you're consumer or whether you're a producer or whether you're in the messy middle, and that includes hospitality, so restaurants or those processing food. Jump on the call with me. We have an opportunity for everyone. And how can you get involved? Well, the very first thing, digital wallet. We have it's free to set up a Grow digital wallet. Whoever invited you on this call, reach out to them. They can show you how to set that up. I can show you how to set that up. I encourage you to do it. It's not scary. In fact, if you're on this call, it's no more difficult than setting up a rally call and pushing some buttons. We all live in the world pretty much of digitization. In fact, I was actually quite amazed. I was speaking to somebody in Tassie, and they said, "Hey, we're still using the Aussie paper bill and coins, and we're holding on fast and furious to that." And I said, "Well, it's only a matter of time that you go digital, right?" And I said, "Yeah, it's coming." Grow offers that opportunity. So it's your wallet, which means self-custodial. No one has access to it. There's no back doors, but it's free for you. So I encourage you to set that up and see how non-cumbersome that is. And then, as I mentioned, book a call with me and really start to dive into how you can get involved and what this means for you. And so that is all. I would love to leave some time for conversations today. Thank you for being here. And I will leave one last thing. Please come back multiple Wednesdays. Sometimes you need to hear this 2 or 3 times, but please bring a friend. So if you're here today, show up with friends, family, network, send the link out. This is for everyone in Australia. So make sure that, you're continuing to talk about these Wednesday calls here.
So good again. Thank you so much, Neil. I'm just going to pop up that Calendly link for people who want to book a call with you now. So guys, if you just click on your screen, this platform's a little bit different. So you can actually click on that click here button. And I'm just going to test it myself that it still works. Yep. It goes straight to Neil's calendar, and you'll be able to select a time there you can pop in there and book a call with Neil and just have a one-to-one discussion with him about your situation, your role in agriculture and food, and you'll get a much better idea. I think it's a bit challenging to talk to all of the different players in the space in one presentation, and so it's just really great then if you can book some time with Neil now that you kind of know who he is, and he doesn't bite, and he's actually really nice and super knowledgeable, and he can help you figure out is there something in the grow space that could really benefit you. And if you're either a farmer who knows other farmers or other producers, or even just, I think we all know, if we're eating, we all kind of get around in our community and we know people who sell food or people who grow food, and we can really, there's not many food producers who aren't struggling in some way at some time during the year. And I know that some of the farmers who are on the call tonight all have their own stories of, when the weather does what the weather does, or the government makes some changes, or or the banks make some changes as well. It just impacts them directly, and it's really, really tough. And I think they need our help. I know they need our help, and they wear all of the risk, so that we eaters can go to the restaurant or go to the supermarket and just take what looks good at that time. And we don't have to wear any of that risk. So Is there anyone that's got questions that wants to unmute or pop a question in the chat while we've got Neil here? Let me know if you wanted to get that link and you missed it, or I think in the chat, Rabina asked about the Nourishmart link. So I've popped that up in the chat and I can pop the Nourishmart up here.
So I will, Jen, if I could, I'll plug actually somebody I've been talking to this week since our last Wednesday call, Jason, Eco Organics. You can find him on the Nourishmart. He's got some eco stays. He's going to be bringing some new products onto the Nourishmart as well. He's got some beef and other produce, but certainly, you know, if you're in the, I believe he's in New South Wales area, you know, look him up. Jason Fuller at Eco Organics is on the Nourishmart. We have some other Aussies on there. One of the things about the Nourishmart, this is a great platform and a great entry spot for some producers. So, you know, maybe the grow node and storing data, maybe that seems a bit opaque and, you know, maybe a bit of a stretch. But if you just have products and you're looking for, you know, introduction of the decentralized finance and really getting involved, we can get you, you know, we go through a bit of a qualification. We can get you onto the Nourishmart. And we can start getting you interacting, you know, with our community that would buy, you know, product from you, and you know, you can see how easy it is to transact with the Grow token. So that might be a good starting spot. So if you know somebody, that also goes for agribusinesses that, you know, are looking to engage with farmers and using our platform. So I encourage everyone to think about it from both perspectives.
And the thing is, Neil, I mean, anyone who's on Facebook, we see farmers advertising direct to consumers to sell their produce. And I don't know, I've got one business that we spend a lot. We can spend $3,000 or $4,000 a week really easily on Facebook ads. And so that's a huge cost to farmers to try and reach their customers. However, for them to sit on the Nourishmart, it doesn't cost them anything, does it, Neil? It's just, they can be on there. There's not a huge weekly cost like running Facebook ads.
Free for vendors. 100% of the profit is yours and no middleman fee. So often people say, well, what's in it for Grow? Well, that utility that I talked about, the utilization, actually adds value to our ecosystem. And so we really wanted to set this up as an additive, right? So one of our goals is not to be extractive. You know, we're not here to continue to be extractive like a lot of systems and platforms are. We're here to be additive. And this is one of those additive components that we bring forth. So free for vendors, 100% profit, no middleman fee, which is really, really fantastic.
Well, and that's a real paradigm shift, isn't it? Because we're so conditioned to just getting that someone's extracting profits and someone's taking out, you know, out of whatever system that we're involved in. And to come to a space where it's like, wait a minute, you mean there's no one taking out of this? And that's what makes it work so beautifully and is so beneficial to so many. And I remember when the penny dropped for me, it was really because I realized that I own some Grow nodes and they earn Grow tokens every day for the work they do on the blockchain. And I can use those Grow tokens to buy my meat direct from the farmer. And I know exactly how he's treated that cow for its whole entire life. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't even need to sell the tokens into Australian dollars and then go shopping with it. I don't need to earn money over here in Australian dollars because my node is earning tokens and I use those tokens to feed my family. So my nodes are feeding my family, actually feeding them. And I think that was my big light bulb moment about really what Grow's doing. And Annika, I wanted to ask you if you could share just a little bit about what, has there been a light bulb for you with how Grow can help you? You grow organic vegetables. How can Grow make your life easier as a farmer?
Well, I guess when you first brought it up with me, Jen, I immediately just realized that being a node owner allows me to have an off-farm asset, it's completely independent to the performance of the farm. So like we say, there's 3 things we can't control. And so when one of those things is coming at you, at least you know that you have an income generating for you every single day, which it doesn't matter if we get bad weather. It doesn't matter if the market is going up and down. It just means that I have some financial stability over here in this corner where it doesn't matter about the farm. So that was just a game changer for me, because last year we had 2 major weather events come through our farm. One at the end of February, which wiped out about 30% of our income for the entire year, our sweet potatoes. And then to mitigate that financial risk, we grew extra crops so we could create another income. And right at the time of harvest, we got hit again with hail. And so essentially the ROI on both plantings was almost 0. And so this is the risk that you take as a farmer, and can be brutal. And I know that all farmers have experienced something like this. And for me, I actually just felt, and I know it sounds dramatic, but I actually just felt like I had hope and a bit of safety, because there was something, for one, that I believe in 100% that is related to farming, which I am so into, and I could create an income over there. The node for me is off-farm asset is just, it's like a no-brainer for me.
Yeah. And that's just one example of how farmers can diversify their balance sheets, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. Stephen, did you want to share before we close up, or Charlie?
Charlie, you go ahead, Charlie.
Good on you. Yeah, look, I think it's very exciting. I get excited every time I sit and listen to Neil talk about it. I've just written a lot of notes. And, how can we really add value to a bottom line for every farming person, community, every business?
I dropped off there for a moment. I'm not sure what happened.
I thought you disappeared, Neil. Sorry, Charlie.
Every service, everyone all the way through to the restaurateur, they're always looking for ways to create better profits, better margins, and that's what excites me about the opportunity with Grow here, is that this is real innovation of taking us to the next level. So,
yeah, awesome. Did we get Neil back? Or?
Yeah, he's there.
Yeah, I'm back.
Oh, he is. Awesome. Okay, well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us again tonight. And as Neil said, Neil will be back at 4 a.m. in the minus 40 degrees for us again next week, and which will be the same time for us, 7 p.m. Queensland time, 8 p.m. New South Wales time. And please, if you can just invite as many people as you can, so we can really help this community to grow. And as we help the community to grow, we can help all of the people in the community. It's such an important space. I mean, without food, we don't have much.
You got it. Thanks for your time, everyone. I see we have about 18, 19 people here. So for everyone that's still on the call, let's see if we can double that for next week. Let's set a bit of a target or a goal, as opposed to just saying invite friends. So let's double it for next week, and we'll go from there. Enjoy your evening.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Neil.
Thanks, Neil.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Ciao.